Hi guys, I am Kylie Sinkwitz, and for M1.2, I chose to do conservation and heritage. So I am going to talk a little bit I'm going to skip over the history a little bit for the sake of time, and I'm going to really focus on the buildings, the historic buildings in the area, art, food, and parks, and obviously how we maintain all of these things to keep this heritage here in LA. So let's get started. So here is just a map of um, some of the historic buildings that I found, and then this little black box is where our site is. I picked out the three of these that were more important, again, for the sake of time. So here is the Bradbury Building. It is the oldest commercial building in downtown Los Angeles. It is known for its skylit atriums and access to walkways, stairs, and elevators. This is City Hall, and obviously, City Hall in any city is something that's important to the heritage, right? A lot of important stuff happens at City Hall, from political rallies to protests to celebrations. They host public meetings and events, which fosters a sense of community, and all of that really, um, and decisions are made here about what happens in the city, right? This one is a really big one, El Pueblo de Los Angeles. So this is the historic and symbolic heart of Los Angeles. It really pays a lot of homage to all of the cultures in Los Angeles, Native Americans, African Americans, Spanish, Anglo, Mexican, Chinese, Italian, and French cultures are all represented um in this place. It is a huge national monument. There are many buildings and museums, and it's a park. A lot of um, heritage is definitely here for sure. So now we're going to go into colors and textures in historic buildings and um, how that can affect things. So most of Los Angeles's historic buildings use special colors and textures to tell a story. And obviously from these types of things you can tell like when this building was made, um, and things like that. So, you know, we can see here the Eastern Columbia building uses this gold and turquoise color, makes it super pretty and super fun to look at. And, you can tell that it's definitely an Art Deco building. And then we have like the Bradbury building where we use like brick and terracotta. And, these doing these things really gives buildings, personality and helps connect them to the history of LA. Um, and these are things we really want to take into consider when designing our own studio project and how we can pull these things into our studio projects to help remember the heritage of the area. Next we're gonna, go into the importance of preserving cultural landmarks. We want to protect landmarks to ensure that the stories and traditions of diverse communities are honored and maintained. And a way that we can do this is with these historic preservation overlay zones. You can see them in this map. All of the areas that are kind of hatched blue here show each of them. These areas, are protected historically and culturally from overdevelopment. For example, Boyle Heights, super close to our site, is one of these zones. Um, and obviously the community plays a huge part in preserving these landmarks. We have all different types of movements, including the grassroots movement. They advocate for protection of murals and other cultural landmarks. We have the Los Angeles Conservancy. They promote, all different kinds of preservation policies and advocate against the demolition of these historic sites. Developing real estate obviously threatens these cultural landmarks. So when we do that, we need to be mindful so that way we don't lose any heritage sites. Strengthening, um, preservation policies and increasing community engagement. We just really want to respect all cultural heritage. All right, now we're gonna go into some adaptive reuse. Um, adaptive reuse, you want to give an old building a new use without completely destroying it. It helps to, preserve cultural history and keep the building alive. Um, we have some examples here. The Ace Hotel used to be a United Artists Theater, but now it's a modern hotel that shows its original Gothic design. Another example here in the middle is Biscuit Company Lofts. It used to be a bakery, but it was converted into residential lofts. And then we have the block here, which was reimagined into a retail complex within a historic building, which is also pretty cool. By doing this, and I mean, there are definitely other examples. These were just ones that stood out to me. It's, a good way to keep history alive while also meeting modern needs. Obviously, things are going to need to be done to historic buildings if we need something now. It's just, try to preserve what is there and reuse it in a way that doesn't completely destroy it. We have some art influences. So obviously in LA, there's going to be some Spanish and Mexican artistic heritage, right? There's influence of Spanish colonial art. There's Mexican muralism in public spaces and buildings. The Art Deco movement had a huge impact on downtown Los Angeles' skyline, lots of geometric patterns and vibrant colors and details in these buildings. The Chicano art movement, again, lots of murals and public art representing the Chicano experience, identity, and resistance. Some examples are the East LA murals. A lot of them are in Boyle Heights, which is super close to our site. And, community-based art projects shape cultural spaces. And then we have modern and contemporary art integration. So we have influences from modern art movements that we see in, more recent buildings that have been built. And then we have public art installations like Urban Light, which is pictured here. And then we have murals and street art. So, stuff like this started in LA back in the 1930s. Obviously, again, huge influence from Mexican muralists. They have become a symbol of social and political movements. In the 1960s to 70s, they become a form of cultural identity. International street artists contribute to, the urban landscape, and, these murals are known now, not just in LA, other people all around the world, these have become symbols. Again, cultural identity and resistance, things. And obviously we would like to make an effort to preserve these murals because they are definitely a huge part of the heritage in Los Angeles. All right, and then we have parks. These were three of the big ones that I pulled. Again, this in the bottom right corner here, El Pueblo de Los Angeles, is that same historic monument I was talking before. Here's the park. Lots of events and cultural events are held in this park. It is the birthplace of LA. And then MacArthur Park is up here in the other corner, is a central place for Central American communities. Lots of people gather there. And then Exposition Park hosts big cultural events and is home to a whole bunch of museums. Obviously, parks are not always meant for recreation. Sometimes they are a huge part of a city's cultural identity. And then lastly, we have food and its cultural significance in Los Angeles. Obviously, as we have been talking, we have come to know that LA, while it does have a huge Hispanic population, it is still a melting pot of cultures. So a lot of the foods that are super popular in LA are tacos and Mexican street food, Korean barbecue, sushi, and I actually came across that French dip sandwiches originated in LA, which I did not know. Um, you know, obviously, Korean barbecue, most of those places are in Koreatown, and sushi is those places are usually in Little Tokyo and, stuff like that. But there are definitely, Mexican street food anywhere, especially by our site. I'm sure with Boyle Heights has a very large Hispanic population. There are probably there's a ton of street food over there. I'm sure you walk around, you'll come across um all kinds of stuff over there. And then obviously this tells a huge story of migration and culture, and all these things came to be in one place. They all came from somewhere. And then obviously celebrations and festivals centered around food like dia Dia de los Muertos and the Chinese New Year are obviously, super cultural events that really play into the heritage of this area as well.